Welcome to the Cheating Infidelity. Did you know over 90% of our viewers don't subscribe? If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit that like button. We're targeting 500 likes on this one. Let's dive into today's tale.
I never thought I would be the kind of woman who kept secrets from her husband. For years, I lived with the belief that honesty and trust were the foundation of a marriage, and I held on to that belief tightly. But life has a strange way of unraveling the things we think we understand. I wish I could say that I never intended for things to go the way they did, but if I'm being completely honest, I can't say that with certainty. Maybe, in some small, hidden part of my heart, I had already let go of the person I used to be before I even realized it myself. When I married Victor, I truly loved him. He was kind, hardworking, and dependable, the kind of man you could rely on when everything else in life seemed uncertain. We built a life together, one that was steady and predictable. I thought that was what I wanted, and for a long time, it was. But somewhere along the way, things began to shift. Not in any obvious, dramatic way, but in small, almost imperceptible changes. Victor became more focused on work, always chasing one deal after another. He told me it was for us, for our future, but I couldn't help but feel like I was slowly becoming an afterthought. Our conversations became shorter, our time together less meaningful. He was there, physically, but emotionally, he felt miles away. I told myself it was normal, that every marriage had its ups and downs, and that this was just a phase. But the longer it went on, the more I felt something deep inside me begin to wither. I still loved Victor, but I started to wonder if love alone was enough. Then I met Daniel. It wasn't anything dramatic, no instant, heart-stopping moment of realization. Just a simple, unremarkable meeting at a local cafe where I had started going in the mornings to clear my head. He was there, sitting at the table next to mine, reading a book. I noticed him because he seemed different from everyone else around us, calm, present, as if he wasn't in a hurry to be anywhere. Over time, we started exchanging polite nods, then small conversations. Nothing inappropriate, just little moments of connection. He told me about his work as a writer, how he found joy in the quiet simplicity of observing life around him. I told him about my days, about the things I used to dream of doing, but never found the time for. At first, I convinced myself it was nothing, a harmless friendship, but deep down, I knew better. Daniel listened in a way that made me feel seen. He remembered small details, asked questions about things Victor had long stopped noticing. He never made me feel like I was complaining when I spoke about my life. He simply listened with an openness that felt rare. I don't know the exact moment when the lines blurred. Maybe it was the day he touched my hand lightly as he laughed at something I said, or the evening we walked by the river, talking about nothing and everything at once, and I realized how much I looked forward to seeing him. I told myself that I was in control, that I would never let it go too far. But emotions don't come with warning signs. One day, you're standing at the edge, thinking you're safe, and the next, you're falling. The guilt came in waves. Every time I saw Victor, I told myself I needed to stop, that I was being unfair to him, to our marriage. But each time I tried to pull away, I found myself drawn back to Daniel. Not because of passion or excitement, but because with him, I felt alive in a way I hadn't in years. I started making excuses to leave the house, to carve out time where I knew I could see Daniel. A part of me knew that I was living on borrowed time, that secrets like these don't stay hidden forever. But I pushed that thought aside, convincing myself that as long as no one got hurt, there was no real harm in it. But secrets have a way of unraveling everything you think you've carefully kept together, and my time was running out. I should have ended it sooner. I should have walked away the moment I realized I was no longer just a wife meeting a friend for coffee. But there's a strange thing about doing something you know is wrong. You keep telling yourself that you'll stop tomorrow, that you'll get it under control, that you haven't crossed the line yet. Until one day, you look back and realize the line has long disappeared behind you. Victor never suspected a thing. Or maybe he did, but he trusted me too much to ever question it. He was always so sure of me, of us. That certainty used to comfort me. Now it felt like a weight pressing against my chest. The guilt became unbearable. Every morning, I woke up promising myself that today would be different, that I would tell Daniel we couldn't see each other anymore. But then I would hear from him, a simple message, a question about my day, and all my resolve would disappear. It wasn't just him I couldn't let go of. It was the way he made me feel, like I was someone worth listening to, like I was someone who still had dreams, thoughts, a life beyond being just Victor's wife. I started to change in ways I didn't even notice at first. Small things. I paid more attention to how I looked before leaving the house. I found myself smiling more, feeling lighter when I was with Daniel. But with Victor, I felt the opposite. Every glance from him felt like a silent accusation, even though he had no reason to suspect me. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, Victor looked up from his plate and said, "You've been different lately." I felt my stomach twist. Different how? I don't know. Distracted. He studied me for a moment, then shrugged. I guess I've just been busy too. That should have been the moment I stopped. The moment I realized that no matter how much I tried to separate the two parts of my life, they were bleeding into each other. But instead of ending it, I held on to both, hoping I could keep them balanced without either one falling apart. Then came the night that changed everything. I had told Victor I was meeting an old friend for dinner. The lie came too easily, slipping from my lips before I even thought about it. He kissed my cheek and told me to have fun. That was the kind of man he was, trusting, unwavering in his belief in me. I met Daniel at a quiet restaurant across town, one where I knew no one would recognize me. We talked for hours, laughing, sharing stories, as if we existed in a world separate from reality. And for those few hours, I let myself believe that was true. It was late when I left. Too late. I should have gone straight home, but instead I lingered, standing by Daniel's car, reluctant to let the night end. That's when I saw him. Victor, standing across the street. For a moment, my mind refused to process it. I told myself it was a trick of the light, that I was imagining things. But then he moved, stepping closer, and I saw his face clearly. There was no anger in his expression, no shock, just quiet devastation. I opened my mouth, but no words came. He didn't say anything either. He just turned and walked away. I wanted to run after him, to explain. But explain what? That it wasn't what it looked like? Because it was. That it hadn't meant anything? Because it did. That I never meant to hurt him? Because I had, and there was no undoing it. When I got home, he was sitting in the dark, his hands clasped together, his head bowed slightly. He didn't look at me when I stepped inside. "I won't ask," he said quietly. "I don't want to hear excuses. I just need to know if you love him." The question knocked the air from my lungs. Did I love Daniel? I had never allowed myself to think about it, because that would mean acknowledging how far I had gone. It would mean admitting that this wasn't just a mistake, but a choice I had been making over and over again. I couldn't answer him, and my silence told him everything. Victor let out a slow breath, then nodded to himself. "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. We can talk in the morning." But what was there left to say? I sat on the edge of our bed that night, staring at the empty space beside me, knowing that nothing would ever be the same again. The morning after Victor saw me with Daniel was the longest morning of my life. I barely slept, lying awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, knowing that everything I had built over the years was slipping through my fingers. I heard Victor moving around before the sun even rose, the sound of drawers opening, the quiet shuffle of footsteps. He wasn't leaving, not yet, but I knew this was the beginning of the end. I forced myself to get out of bed and face what I had done. When I walked into the kitchen, he was already there, staring at his coffee like it held the answers he was looking for. He didn't look up when he said, "Did you ever plan on telling me?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't know." He finally met my eyes, and I wished he hadn't. There was no anger there, no shouting, no accusations, just quiet, exhausted pain. Why? That was the hardest question of all. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I had too many. Because I felt lonely. Because I wanted to feel seen. Because I made a mistake and kept making it, pretending I had control. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like the woman I used to be. I could have said all of that. Maybe I should have. But in the end, all I could say was, "I don't know." He let out a breath, rubbing his fingers against his temples. "Is it over?" I hesitated for half a second, just half a second. But that was all it took. He nodded, understanding more from that silence than any words I could have said. That's what I thought. I wanted to take it back, to say, yes, it's over. To tell him that I would end it, that I would fix everything if he would just give me a chance. But even as I opened my mouth, I knew it would be a lie. I had already crossed too many lines to pretend I could erase them now. "I never wanted to hurt you," I whispered, his jaw clenched, his fingers tightening around his coffee cup. "Well, you did." I looked away, ashamed. "I don't know how to fix this." "You can't." He stood, pushing his chair back. "You made your choice. Now I have to make mine." I followed him as he walked to the bedroom, watching as he pulled a bag from the closet. "You're leaving?" He didn't stop packing. "I need space. I can't be here right now." A part of me wanted to beg him to stay, to promise that I would do anything to make it right. But another part, the part that had spent months making excuses, convincing myself that no one was getting hurt, knew that this was what I deserved. When he reached the door, he hesitated. For a moment, I thought he might turn around, that maybe there was still a chance to undo this. But then he simply said, "I loved you, you know. I still do. But I don't think that's enough anymore." And then he was gone. I stood in the empty house, listening to the silence, feeling the weight of everything I had lost. I thought about Daniel, about how this whole thing had started, about how easy it was to fall into something without realizing you're falling. But now, standing in the wreckage of my choices, I realized something else. Daniel wasn't the answer. He was never the answer. I picked up my phone, my fingers hovering over his name. I could call him. I could tell him what had happened, let him comfort me, make me feel less alone. But as I stared at the screen, I knew the truth. This wasn't about Daniel. It was never about him. This was about me, about the choices I made, about the fact that no matter how much I tried to justify them, I had destroyed the one thing in my life that had truly mattered. I put the phone down. For the first time in months, I sat with the silence. I didn't try to escape it. I didn't try to run from it. I just let it sink in. Because this time, there was no one else to blame but myself.